Again, true cost associated with outsourcing. So Don's going to take you through some of the advantages of rural outsourcing. We're going to share some data with you about what our true costs are and what we're seeing in the market out there, so hopefully we'll find this very informative. Connie, I believe, said that this presentation will be available somehow.
It's on the service website.
Okay. There are some links in the presentation where you can actually get copies of this and actually get the data associated with the information that we're presenting today. So, Don?
Thanks, Martin. A couple of the things that we wanted to do, rather than just kind of present the topic of rural sourcing, is we wanted to get into some of the data that was available to us by running multiple engagements in rural domestic delivery centers as well as local delivery centers. So we'll touch base on some of that. A couple of the advantages, we really look at what really spawned this industry and doing the global delivery. It really started around the labor arbitrage. So we felt it was very important to get some data today. What does that look like as far as the cost of labor in the U.S. and some of the rural locations versus, in the major metropolitan cities? So we'll touch base on that. Labor advantages typically run 20 to 40%. Really depends on the type of labor. Can you hear? So,
Turn it on.
I thought it was. So it really depends on the type of labor, and you'll see a little bit of information about, the specific labor categories. I'm just going to speak up. I'm still messing with this thing here. But we'll get into some of the details around that. The skills available. It's important to note when you're looking at a sourcing strategy, if you're going to go rural, if you're going to go to a particular center like East Liverpool, or if you're going to India. Marty, you mentioned earlier, skill availability is one of the critical factors. So you have the skills that are required for the applications that are in scope or the work that's going to be performed by your outsourcing provider. So we'll talk a little bit about that. It's not always that the skills that you're looking for are, for example, in East Liverpool, you may not find everything, right? So how do you source those skill sets? Is there a college? Is there an IT college? So we talk a little bit about the location availability. If you're looking for mainframe skill sets, for example, they're a little bit harder to find in India these days than they initially were when the industry started up. We have found that there are a lot of retirees with excellent mainframe skill sets in Tampa. And so reaching into that labor market, you wouldn't think of Tampa being a rural delivery center, but in that skill set it actually works. So you really have to kind of take a look at your scenario, the work that you're going to be outsourcing, and where are you getting the skills, and are those skills readily available? Can you hear when I speak up a little louder like that?
Mark.
Thank you.
This is called multi-skilling.
All right. Some of the other advantages of doing rural sourcing, anywhere here in the U.S., you've got the data privacy issues. If anyone's gone offshore, you realize that there are obviously different regulations involved in data security, privacy issues. And it's not just the different regulations, but it's the enforcement of those data privacy concerns and even the remedies in the event that you have an issue in a global delivery model. So when you bring that work back to the U.S., you simplify that. We're all under the same regulations, and the remedies obviously are much more straightforward. Marty touched base a little bit about the midnight calls, the 2 o'clock in the morning calls. If you're like myself, I've done a lot of global delivery, and by no means was this intended to be a bash India thing, right? We've used India in successful engagements for the right kind of work multiple times, but just really trying to educate you about some of the things, if you're considering doing that you need to be aware of and not be surprised about. For me, being able to work all day during the day in front of the customer side, manage those engagements, and then do a lot of your issue resolution at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know about you, but I'm not at my best at that time in the morning. So that's one of the things you're going to see if you haven't already. For those of you that are in a global delivery model, you're probably already experiencing that today. The other thing that I like to talk about on that is, I don't really require getting any shops to go to East Liverpool. So that's another slight advantage, not having to go halfway around the world in order to meet the people that are doing the work for me. There are some intangibles. We talked a little bit briefly about some of the marketing advantages, the Buy America advantages. There are some political advantage for having work here. And it's just the basic revitalization of our own economy. If we can prove that the skill sets are there, the labor arbitrage is there, and we can eliminate some of the management difficulties in delivering the engagements, then it makes more sense, and we start to revitalize our own economy. So that's for sure. So back to the main point was all around labor arbitrage. Well, the cost of labor in India has gone up. It's gone up substantially year over year. If we take a look at where we're at today, this is using a 2010 DICE salary survey. And so it breaks it down, basic U.S. salaries by labor category or job title, if you will. And we took this and compared it to what we're actually paying for the same skill sets in a rural model. And what we're showing here is the percentage of savings by job title. And the key point on the arrow is, where do we start to see 40% savings in salaries in a rural model here in the U.S.? And it's profound. You would never have expected to see this, in years gone by, right? So the things to the left of the arrow, you'll see that there are software engineers. These are people that are developing software engineering in an engineering environment. They're still pretty expensive, right? You're not seeing a tremendous amount of savings. But we don't use a lot of them for the core of what we do. Same with the CTO, VPs, ITs. The ones on the left, you don't see a lot of them in your outsourcing engagements. If you do, they're one-offs. The ones to the right of the arrow, that's where the bulk of the heavy lifting gets done on your AO deals. These are the programmers, the testers, the tech writers, the database designers, the people that are really in there doing your application development, maintenance, and production support work. Okay.
One quick point before we leave the slide is that anybody in an offshore engagement, if you take a look at the categories on the left of the chart, almost in every case, they're here anyway. So if you're talking about using an offshore provider, you're actually going to be paying onshore rates for those skills. So it's a very telling chart.
Okay. Any questions on this slide? I want to be a little bit, interactive here.